Hello everyone, I am Calico, and this is the first part in a YouTube video series where we read and analyze one of my favorite novels ever written, Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. This book is about humanity, humanity's place in the world, humanity's relationship to nature, and most of all, how we can save the world from ourselves. If you haven't read this book, I strongly suggest you do so before watching this video. It's one of the most important books I think everyone should read. It'll probably change your whole view of humanity and civilization, so be prepared for that. The main subject of this book is captivity. Ishmael thinks of humanity as being held in captivity, along with the world being held in captivity by humans. We're all being held captive by a story we're telling ourselves. The story is inherently destructive to the planet and unhealthy for humans. In this video series, we're going to explore what that story is and why it's so destructive. The book doesn't really have chapters in it. It has different parts, and each of these parts have multiple sections to them. I'm just going to go through them by telling you what number the part I'm talking about is and what number the section is. So like part 1, section 3 or something like that. I'm pretty much going to skip the beginning and the backstory part of Ishmael because nothing really deep or philosophical is talked about in that part of the book, so I'm just going to start reading from part 1, section 6. This is where the subject of captivity comes up. Ishmael says that the subject he intends to teach is captivity. He says that humans are captives of a civilizational system that basically encourages us or forces us to go on destroying the world in order to live. And that's what's at stake, our captivity and our captivity of the world. We are unable to escape this captivity because we can't find the bars of the cage. In other words, we know we're being held captive by something, but we don't know what that something is. We know we are destroying the world, but most of us don't know why we're destroying the world. And I think that's the problem we're facing. We know what we're doing. We know we're destroying the fundamental ecosystems that humanity relies on. But we can't explain exactly why we're doing this. And if we don't know why we're doing it, we can't really stop. It's kinda hard to stop doing something when you don't know what's causing you to do it in the first place, so I think that's the biggest problem facing humanity right now. It's why are we doing this? Why are we destroying the planet when millions of other species live on this planet and they're not destroying the world? I think a lot of people don't really ask that question. I think they see that we're destroying the planet and then just kind of shrug like, well, that's how humans be, without really asking like why. Why is humanity this way? Why are we the only ones consuming the planet and exploiting the planet when everyone else lives on the planet just fine? And then they try to solve the problem, but they just fail because they don't understand the main cause behind why we're destroying the world. So that's a thought I've had for a long time. It's that everyone cares about saving the world, but nobody asks why we're destroying it, and then they just fail at saving it because they don't know why we're destroying it. Ishmael then says that it would be beneficial if we all found out what was holding us captive. If we all found out what we were being lied to about, then we could free ourselves from the cage. So that's what we must do. We must figure out the lie that we're being told, which is holding us captive, and then we can break out of the cage. Moving on to part 2, section 1, Ishmael compares our captivity to Germany's captivity under Hitler during World War II. All of Germany was Hitler's captive, including his supporters. What held them captive wasn't terror, but it was a story Hitler told. A story in which the Aryan race, and the people of Germany in particular, had been deprived of their rightful place in the world, bound, spat upon, raped, and ground into the dirt under the heels of mongrel races, communists, and Jews. A story in which, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, the Aryan race would burst its bonds, wreak vengeance on its oppressors, purify mankind of its defilements, and assume its rightful place as the master of all races. Ishmael says that we, like the people of Germany, are being sold a story that we find to be appealing and wonderful, and are doing everything we can to make it become a reality. By we, Ishmael means the people of our culture, which is pretty much most of humanity, basically everyone who is civilized. And it doesn't matter if we think the story is ridiculous and untrue. The people around us are making us captives because the majority stifles out the minority, and the majority are supporters of this story, so there's really no way for those of us who think this story is insane to abandon it or discontinue it in any way, much like it was for the people of Germany. The difference between us and the people of Germany was that if they didn't want to take a place in Hitler's story, they could escape Germany. But we don't have that choice because everywhere we go, we're all enacting the same sort of story. Almost all of humanity is the same. We're all enacting the same sort of story everywhere in almost all countries. And we're all being held captive by this story because everywhere you go, the rule is the same. Those who refuse to take a place do not get fed. In Part 2, Section 2, Ishmael says that our culture, or mother culture, teaches us that this is how it should be, that we were born to enact this story, and that, as a reward for enacting it, we get fed. To depart from the story is to depart from the human race itself, to venture into oblivion. There is no something else, and that the only way out is through death. In Part 2, Section 4, he says that our mother culture has been giving us an explaining story of how things came to be this way, and that this story wasn't given to us all at once. We assembled this story together from a million bits of information given to us by the table talk of our parents, cartoons we watched on television, Sunday school lessons, textbooks and teachers, news broadcasts, movies, novels, sermons, plays, newspapers, and all the rest. Everyone knows the story and everyone accepts it without question. In Part 2, Section 7, Ishmael tells his student that one of his previous pupils observed that the reason that people are not worried or scared about the current state of the planet is because they believe what they've been told in this explaining story. This explanation covers everything, including the deterioration of the ozone layer, the pollution of the oceans, the destruction of the rainforest, and even human extinction, and it satisfies them. This story is also something that Ishmael calls mythology. This is living mythology, not Greek mythology or Norse mythology. It's not recorded in any book, it's recorded in the minds of the people of our culture. We don't recognize this story as mythology because we tend to think of mythology as a set of fanciful tales, and we see this story being told to us as fact. Much like the Greeks, we don't think of our mythology as fanciful tales, but as just the way things are. The Greeks didn't recognize their tales about the gods and heroes of the past as mythology, but they were definitely mythology, and the same is true for us. Just because we don't recognize our stories as mythology doesn't mean they're not mythology. Despite the fact that many people would probably say that we have no creation myth, we definitely do have a creation myth. It's just not recognized as a myth. People who aren't Christians would probably say that Christians definitely have a creation myth, but for actual Christians, it's not really seen as myth. It's seen as the way things actually happened. What Ishmael's trying to say is that the people of our culture, pretty much all of humanity, have the same creation myth that isn't a religious myth or anything like that, in that the future of the human race depends on us recognizing it as a myth and then moving away from that myth, which I'm guessing is going to be really hard for us to do because humans do not like being wrong. Anyway, that's about it for this video. In the next part of the series, I want to try looking at what exactly this mythological story is, and how it controls us and causes us to be destructive to the planet and destructive to ourselves, and how exactly it's taught to us in school and by our parents and by everything around us. How it's what we've been taught our entire lives and have been told is true of humanity. So if you liked this video, I hope you will watch the next part of this series and like and share this video. Comment down below what you think about what we've talked about so far, what you think about Ishmael and what he says about us having mythology in our culture or a creation myth. I'd be really interested to know what your thoughts and opinions are, especially if you've read Ishmael. I really just need someone to talk to about this book because my family and friends aren't really into reading, so yeah, I don't have many people I can talk to about Ishmael. Also, please be nice in the comments. This is my first YouTube video, and I don't have a lot of confidence, and I'm very ignorant about YouTube. I don't know much about making YouTube videos. So yeah, I'm just kind of doing my best right now. Also, I'm aware this video is kind of short, but there wasn't really that much to analyze in this part of the book, so hopefully the next video will be longer. Anyway, that's it. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.